Scorpio, God saw your tears, and what's about to unfold in your life has never happened to anyone else before. That's not just a dramatic opening line. It's a sacred confirmation. And if something inside you just stirred when you heard those words, you already know this message was sent directly to your soul. You're not here by accident. You're not watching this video because of the algorithm. You're here because your name was whispered in heaven, and now, the energy is moving. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like your prayers were heard but not yet answered? Have you ever wondered if all the pain you endured, all the silent sacrifices, all the late nights of questioning were seen by anyone? Especially by God? If so, take a deep breath. Because this video was created for you, Scorpio. And not just as a forecast, but as a soul alignment transmission through astrology, tarot, divine energy, and sacred timing. Welcome to Miracle of the Sign, a spiritual space where cosmic timing meets divine prophecy. Here, we don't just interpret the stars, we listen for the whisper of heaven and the silence between the signs. As I opened today's cards, I didn't just see messages, I felt something deeper. Your energy was there, wrapped in the sacred stillness of transformation. The very first vibration said, "This is not a prediction. This is a divine appointment." And someone watching this right now is about to witness an intervention from heaven. Scorpio, you've carried so much with such fierce loyalty and silence. You've walked through storms without asking for shelter. You've been the one others leaned on, even when your own heart was breaking. And still you gave, you loved, and you believed. And now, heaven responds. Today's reading is not about surface-level fortune. It's about divine justice. It's about healing the root, not masking the symptom. And most of all, it's about receiving what has been spiritually promised to you long before you were born. Through the voice of the Judgment card, the Ace of Cups, and the Hierophant, God is declaring, you are seen. You are loved. You are chosen. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being faithful even in the dark. And before we begin this journey together, let me pause for a moment and say something that must be said. Thank you. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your energy. Every time you like, comment, or subscribe, you're not just supporting a channel. You're expanding a field of divine healing and allowing these sacred transmissions to reach those who need them most. Your support has been a divine partnership. And yes, your energy matters here. If this message already resonates with your heart, take a moment and write in the comments. I am here. I receive this divine message from my soul. Writing it affirms the alignment. It's not just a comment, it's an agreement. A sacred act of saying yes to the healing, to the love, and to the calling that's moving in your life now. And trust me, Scorpio, you'll want to stay with me through every word of this reading. Because what the universe is about to reveal will move you, challenge you, and quite possibly change the entire trajectory of your destiny. Are you ready to remember who you truly are? Stay close. Your moment begins now. Scorpio, what if this moment wasn't about being saved, but about being seen? That's the power behind the energy of Judgment, Ace of Cups, and the Hierophant, a triad not of crisis, but of sacred return. In the symphony of your soul's story, this is the trumpet call. And not the sound of an ending, but of an ancient promise being remembered. This is where heaven doesn't come down to punish you, it rises within you to claim you. Not for who you were told to be, but for who you've always been beneath the scar tissue. Judgment doesn't just declare you worthy now. It's the echo of all the moments you showed up in love, in silence, in sacrifice without needing applause. It sees the quiet nights you sat awake with grief while pretending to be strong for others. It remembers the loyalty you gave even when you were met with distance. And in this moment, the universe isn't demanding your perfection, it's acknowledging your perseverance. You're not being judged. You're being recognized. The Ace of Cups isn't just about receiving love. It's about remembering that the wellspring you long for has always been inside of you. It flows now not because you begged for it, but because your soul has grown thirsty enough to drink from something deeper. True love, the kind you're being called to receive, isn't flashy or fragile. It's rooted, healing, and quietly divine. This love doesn't rush in to sweep you away. It arrives to hold your heart with the same tenderness you've extended to everyone else, but finally, it's being mirrored back to you. And then there's the Hierophant, not just as a symbol of tradition, but as a sacred mirror. In your journey, this guide could appear as a mentor, an ancestor, a whisper in your dreams, or even as a deeper version of your own intuition. This archetype has been with you longer than your memory can track. It's the part of your lineage that has survived wars, heartbreak, exodus, and rebirth. It's been praying for you long before you even knew how to pray for yourself. When Scorpio meets the influence of the lunar nodes or a transformative eclipse, we often see emotional tectonic plates shifting, layers of inherited silence cracking open. This is not chaos. It's reorganization. You are not breaking down. You are breaking free. In astrology, when your sign is activated in this way, it often catalyzes a cycle of karmic release. Relationships that mirrored your fears begin to dissolve. Emotional loops you once mistook for fate suddenly feel hollow. The work you've done on yourself quietly, relentlessly begins to make sense. And that's the moment you realize, you're not healing just to be okay. You're healing to remember that you were never broken. Practically speaking, this is a time for renewal rituals, not to fix yourself, but to align with who you've always been. One beautiful daily practice is writing the phrase, "I forgive myself," in your journal each morning. Not because you've failed, but because you're finally ready to stop carrying what was never yours to hold. Let this phrase soften your nervous system, rewire the tension inside your chest, and slowly unbind the judgments you learned to believe about yourself. It's not about forgetting your past. It's about no longer using it as evidence against your worthiness. This part of your journey isn't about waiting for the universe to act, it's about realizing the universe has already moved, and it's your time to respond. You're not being pushed. You're being invited. With every tear you've cried, you've been sowing a seed. And now, the ground beneath you is ripe. You are not the storm. You are the one who survived it. And now, Scorpio, the trumpet has sounded, not to awaken you from sleep, but to welcome you home. There are seasons in life when silence is not just quiet, it's sacred. Scorpio, you've been living in one of those seasons. A time when not much on the outside seemed to shift, but inside, entire universes have been dissolving and rebuilding. And that is the true meaning behind this chapter of your reading. When the world appears alongside the Queen of Pentacles, the Hanged Man, the Emperor, and the star, it's not merely a tarot message, it's a soul signature. One that affirms the weight you've carried wasn't punishment. It was alchemy. Ending a generational cycle isn't something that happens with loud applause. It happens in kitchens while you're doing the dishes and choosing not to yell back. It happens when you forgive people who never asked. It happens when you decide that your peace matters more than being right. That's what you've done. You didn't just break the pattern, you broke the silence. And the universe noticed. The Hanged Man shows us this clearly. You weren't stuck. You were suspended. Held in a divine pause so that the pain you inherited could transmute inside you, not get passed through you. That takes an unbelievable amount of spiritual maturity, and Scorpio, you have that. The waiting, the losses, the moments that felt like failure were not evidence of your inadequacy. They were evidence that you were ready to heal from a deeper place than most people ever dare to visit. The Queen of Pentacles adds another layer to this sacred unfolding. She doesn't rush. She nurtures. She grounds. Her presence in your reading reminds you that the power you hold isn't loud or performative. It's restorative. You have the ability to build a life that feels good from the inside out. This kind of abundance doesn't scream for validation, it simply radiates. You don't have to prove anything anymore. You get to rest in who you've become. And then comes the Emperor, not as a figure of control, but as a reflection of your inner authority being reclaimed. Where once you might have sought permission from others to feel valid or to be loved, now you begin to feel the strength that emerges from within when you know who you are, especially after surviving so much. The Emperor reminds us that it's safe to lead ourselves. You are the structure now. You are the protector of your own peace. But the most poignant moment in this spread is the star. Because the star never shows up unless something inside you has broken wide open. It appears as a whisper, I saw you when no one else did. It reminds you that every moment you cried in secret, every time you felt forgotten, every prayer you whispered into your pillow, it was heard. Not by the world, but by something far greater. And that presence didn't forget. In fact, it's been working quietly to bring forth a gift that could only be unwrapped once you were ready. Energetically, we see a color signature emerging: deep blue and soft gold. These tones correspond to the heart and crown chakras, compassion and divine wisdom. Together, they represent a moment of inner alignment where your heart finally opens without fear, and your mind connects to something greater than logic, faith. This is not the reward for suffering. This is the unveiling of who you've always been beneath the weight of what you were never meant to carry. The real gift wasn't delay, it was protected. Waiting for the moment when you'd be able to receive it without self-sabotage, without guilt, and without shrinking. So now, when you ask yourself why you've had to endure so much, perhaps the better question is, who have you become because of it? Because that's the true miracle, when your pain doesn't define you, but transforms you. When the Two of Cups appears alongside the Ace of Pentacles, Four of Wands, Knight of Cups, and the Empress, we are no longer speaking only of external relationships, we're speaking of soul recognition. And not just the kind that comes in a romantic glow, but the kind that says, I see you. I remember you. I've known you beyond time. This energy doesn't crash into your life with chaos. It enters quietly, like sunlight through a curtain. It's not meant to fix you. It's meant to mirror what you've finally begun to believe about yourself, that you are ready to be met fully, deeply, and without compromise. Scorpio, your journey so far hasn't just been about surviving heartbreak or learning to set boundaries. It's been about preparing your energy to become a match to something sacred. True connection doesn't arrive when we're still leaking energy into what abandoned us. It arrives when we have enough self-trust to hold space for someone else without abandoning ourselves in the process. The Two of Cups is that moment. It's not about possession. It's about presence. Not about falling in love, but about rising in recognition. The Ace of Pentacles then grounds this connection into the physical world. This isn't a fantasy or a fleeting emotion. It's a tangible opportunity, a doorway into a more rooted, stable chapter of life. For some, it may manifest as a new relationship. For others, it may be a collaboration, a home, a new soul tribe. Either way, it carries the frequency of destiny, and you don't need to chase it. You only need to receive it. But that reception, as simple as it sounds, requires a decision, to believe you are worthy of being met, not someday, but now. The Four of Wands brings the sacredness of space into the conversation. It represents celebration, but not of performance or image. It symbolizes the kind of celebration that happens when your soul finally finds a place to rest. This could be a literal new home. It could be a spiritual refuge. Or it could be a person who feels like coming home after a lifetime of searching. You may have spent years being strong for everyone else, but this is the chapter where strength looks like allowing softness to return. You were not meant to carry it all alone. Love, in its truest form, doesn't rescue you, it joins you. Then comes the Knight of Cups. A seeker of beauty. A messenger of emotional truth. This is the energy of someone who has been searching too, not just for another, but for themselves. And somehow, through this invisible weaving of timelines and choices and healing, they are led to you, and you to them. You don't have to know how or when. You just have to stay open long enough for the moment to find you. And at the center of it all is the Empress. She is not chasing. She is not proving. She is simply becoming. She knows that her energy is magnetic, not because she demands it, but because she embodies it. She creates space for love, and love fills it. In you, that same power is awakening the ability to become a sanctuary for yourself, and by doing so, to become a mirror of peace and safety for others. As an embodiment practice, consider writing the affirmation each morning: I open myself to divine love and safe connection. Not because it guarantees instant arrival, but because it prepares your nervous system to receive it. When your body, mind, and heart align in a single frequency of trust, you no longer question what's coming, you become it. The truth is, Scorpio, love has been on its way to you this whole time. It didn't delay because you weren't enough. It paused because it needed you to believe that you are. And now that you do, what once felt distant begins to feel inevitable. Transformation rarely begins with applause. More often, it begins with a shake. Not a violent storm, but a tremor deep beneath the surface of who you used to be. Scorpio, this moment in your life may feel like something is collapsing, but the cards show us it's not destruction. It's sacred demolition. The tower doesn't appear to ruin you. It arrives to remove what has quietly eroded beneath the weight of years. outdated beliefs, limiting roles, emotional contracts you never signed but somehow inherited. And now, what was built on survival is giving way to something far more true: your ability to consciously create. This is not just a breakdown. It is a clean break. A rupture in the timeline that returns you to the part of yourself you left behind when life demanded endurance. And when the Ten of Pentacles appears next to the Tower, it reminds us that some of the deepest healing begins not with individual willpower, but with ancestral restoration. Sometimes, what crumbles is not personal, it's generational. You may feel called to release patterns that didn't begin with you, but end with you. And that is not a burden. It's a calling. The High Priestess emerges next, not as a savior but as a revealer. She doesn't hand you a manual. She holds up a mirror. And within it, you may start to see the face of the woman who came before you. A grandmother, a mother, a forgotten matriarch whose truth was hidden because it frightened the systems around her. But it lives in your blood. Her sight, her strength, her gift to see beyond the veil. What she couldn't finish, she planted in you not as an obligation, but as a possibility. The King of Pentacles follows as a promise that this shift is not just internal. There are real-world manifestations ahead: stability, abundance, grounded growth. But now, these will be built on a new foundation: alignment, not attachment. Purpose, not pressure. The world will no longer ask you to shrink to be successful. It will begin to respond to your authenticity, not your performance. And then, the magician appears. You are no longer simply reacting to what life gives. You are becoming the author of what comes next. The magician teaches us that power doesn't come from what you know, it comes from what you remember. You already carry the tools, the intuition, the voice, the courage, the clarity. What changes now is how you choose to use them. Not to fix your life, but to shape it. Then, suddenly, a new energy enters. The Fool. Not foolish, but free. This is you stepping into the unknown, not because you lack experience, but because you finally trust your inner compass more than external approval. This is not a reset. It's a rebirth. A new chapter that does not erase your past but integrates it. You are no longer just the one who endured. You are the one who emerged. The star returns once more to seal this phase, not as a wish, but as a sign. That your pain was not wasted. That the light you're walking into was not created outside of you, it was ignited within you. You've walked through fire and still you shine. Not despite what happened, but because of how you chose to heal. To support this next phase, consider small, nourishing shifts. Reduce stimulants like caffeine. Increase natural serotonin through foods like oats, bananas, and dark leafy greens. These help stabilize your nervous system while your soul recalibrates. And if you've been seeing the numbers 1, 9, or 33, trust that they're not random. They carry messages of beginnings, completions, and soul leadership. You are standing between a final release and a divine arrival. This isn't the end of a story. It's the beginning of your real one. Scorpio, if you've made it to this moment, you already know something deep within you has shifted. Not because someone told you it should, but because your soul finally exhaled and said, yes. This is what I've been waiting for. You are no longer walking through life with your heart in pieces. You are walking with your eyes open, your voice steady, and your spirit lit from within by a quiet fire no one can extinguish. That fire didn't start in the sunshine. It began in your darkest night. And still you are here. The path you've walked, filled with silence, resilience, and questions no one could answer for you, has not gone unnoticed. And what makes this moment holy is not just that healing has found you, but that you've become the one who can now bring healing to others. Because you know what it's like to feel invisible. You know what it's like to pray and wait. You know how heavy hope can feel when it's carried for too long. And precisely because you know all this, you now carry the medicine that others need. You are no longer just being healed. You are being called. So let me ask you, who around you needs the version of you that you are now becoming? Who could benefit from your wisdom, your softness, your lived truth? Could it be that someone is waiting for you to step into your purpose, not because they expect you to be perfect, but because your imperfection gives them permission to try again? This is how miracles begin, not as lightning bolts, but as quiet choices made consistently from the heart. This is how faith is planted, not in grand declarations, but in the willingness to keep showing up even when it would be easier to hide. And this is how you reclaim your future, not by erasing your past, but by redeeming it. If this message stirred something within you, I invite you to anchor it in the physical world with one simple action. Comment below and write, "I honor my inner sanctuary and trust the tenderness of divine guidance." Because sometimes a sentence is more than just words. It's an energetic signature. A spiritual agreement. A doorway to everything you've quietly longed for. And if you haven't already, I would be honored if you would like this video, subscribe to Miracle of the Sign, and share this message with someone whose soul might need it today. Every small action you take here adds light to a network of unseen grace. Your presence here isn't just support. It's sacred. Remember, you don't have to rush. You don't have to strive. You just have to believe that what's meant for you will recognize your name when it arrives. And it will. You are already being led. You are not just part of the miracle. You are the miracle. And no matter what lies ahead, know this, you are never walking alone.